Right, we're moving right into it with Leslie. Are you ready, Leslie? All right, come on in. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Derric? Good to see your face.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yesterday's opening keynote, apparently Camilla was wearing a Venom jacket. So she gave you a
Camilla
special
is
shout-out.
she's our girl. She was actually one of our first customers. I think we met at a pitch event quite a while ago, and she was like an instant fan. So shout out back to Camilla. Savitude is awesome. She's doing great things with that business.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great way to start the show. So for everybody that doesn't know Leslie Fong of Venom, tell us about this really awesome, like cool brand that you started and have. We could even, maybe I'll screen share the website, but you get it started and I'll show people.
Yeah, definitely screen share the website. I will take all the traffic that I can get. Um, so yeah, Venom was founded in 2018. It is a digitally native fashion brand. That's always been my background. I've done brand marketing for fashion companies in the Bay Area for basically my entire career. But a few years ago, I decided that I really wanted to do it for myself. I definitely have like a creative side and also a very business-minded side, and I just wasn't stretching my creative muscles enough working for other companies. So founded Venom on the principles of genderless fashion. So we really wanted to develop a denim jacket. That's our exclusive product type. We really wanted to develop a product that was just did not need any sort of gender labels, and it's the perfect style of product to really do that with. I mean, denim jackets are popular on a global scale, and you see people like borrowing their boyfriend's jacket when they're a girl, or like not even identifying with certain gender all the time. So we really wanted to develop styles that were a little bit more oversized, a little bit more streetwear minded, and could fit and flatter more body types regardless of gender.
And look at
We're
this one
also
right
really
here. It's
committed.
so cool.
Yeah, this one, we'll talk about it in a minute too. This is something that we launched. I think, when did we speak last? In like, I
In
think June.
August-ish, maybe something like
Okay,
that.
okay. So yeah, some things have happened since we last talked. But yes, this is one of them. We also launched a new collection called Atelier. It is completely the objective was not to sell these really insane, really couture versions of our denim jackets. It was to get press attention, and it was successful. It was all about just creating these crazy, one of a kind, really experimental denim jackets, and seeing what stylists would bite, and if we could get a little bit of the media to see the innovation there, and pay attention. So yeah,
I
that happened too.
I love
But
it.
yeah, for
The
anybody that
styles
doesn't
are
know us,
so
yeah.
cool. So yeah, okay, yeah. I'll let you go. I have questions though, but keep
Well,
going.
that's it. I mean, Venom we're all about customizable denim jackets at the end of the day. And we also make all of our products out of liability denim, which is essentially dead stock. And that's really important to us as well, is that we're making it as ethically and sustainably as possible. I don't call Venom a sustainable brand. I don't like using that word unless you can say it with truth and authenticity, but we do just try to make our products a better, smarter, more efficient way that's more mindful of the environment.
So definitely walk me through that process. How do you source this it's secondhand denim, and how did you, because we've talked about it before, but for those listening today, how did you get this supply chain situation sorted out? This sounds like a really big struggle.
Yeah, it's you got to have some industry knowledge, and that's where my co-founder Casey comes in. She is a natural born denim head, always has been. You know, she cut her teeth at Levi's for 4 years, and she's done denim development for other brands also in California and the Bay Area specifically. So I could not have founded or launched or progressed this company without Casey's connections and without her knowledge of denim production. So right out the gate, we already had relationships with companies that are mostly based down in LA, and they're sometimes referred to as jobbers. And essentially what they do is they act as middlemen between really, really big denim production companies, Levi's included, but also other brands such as like Helmut Lang, for example. I mean, you name it, Frame Denim, whatever it is. sometimes these companies produce denim that they don't end up using at all. And let's say they have, I don't know, a factory in the United States, a factory in Vietnam, and one in, I don't know, Turkey or something like that. If they don't end up using the denim that they produce in, we'll say, the United States, it actually becomes more expensive for them to ship that back to Vietnam, where they might be working on a specific line. So that product ends up just sitting in a warehouse unused. And so what they do is they sell it to companies like that are smaller, like Venim. And that way we're not trying to transport all this product back and forth between countries, using up a lot of fuel, using up a lot of resources. And it's quality stuff. There just might be flaws sometimes that we cut around.
Okay. So walk me through your manufacturing process. So you've got this secondhand denim that's still very high quality, essentially unused, and it's in the United States. So you're manufacturing in the United States. How did you get manufacturing set up? Did you make these yourself? Like,
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So the way that we produce our denim jackets is about 90% to completion. We work with an amazing denim factory in San Francisco, which is pretty rare. But seeing as how San Francisco is a denim capital, especially with Levi's being based there, there are still factories that produce small denim lines in the city. So our factory takes this liability fabric and they produce what we call shell jackets. This is basically a denim jacket in one of our 5 washes or one of our 2 lengths. That's almost complete, but it doesn't have the buttons. It doesn't have any sort of bells or whistles on it yet. It's mostly just like a blank canvas. So we have those produced, and that's what those factories are delivering to our little studio also in the Bay Area. And when people place an order for a custom denim jacket, or what we refer to as like a ready-made jacket, which is just a pre-designed style, then we make the jackets to order and we do the hand finishing in person in our studio. We apply the buttons, we apply a foil, for example, which is one of the styles that we're known for. We make all of it basically by hand and pack it up and ship it to our customers. And that really helps reduce inventory risk. It helps reduce returns. It allows people to also participate in the design of their jacket, which therefore makes them value the product more. So yeah, it's almost like every jacket has a unique sort of fingerprint. No 2 foil jackets are exactly the same.
And it sounds like you maybe had some learnings here. You said, reducing inventory risk. Was there any points in the history of the company where it wasn't as smoothly operated and you had to learn this by trial by fire?
It's funny. I knew that inventory risk was already a possibility just by working for other companies. So I actually built the model for Venim based off of this possibility before we even had to make any of those mistakes. So that was always in mind. So no, I did not have to make any mistakes with regards to inventory risk with Venim, but I definitely had to do it with some of the brands that I've worked for in the past. And part of Venim's model was to mitigate that possible risk.
I gotcha. So let's talk about marketing. Can't have a conversation with me without talking about marketing, right? First there was this new product that we were talking about launching, which was subscription patches, and you had been bringing in some niche artists and stuff like that. How did this go? How did this launch go? And where is it at today?
Yeah, for sure. I'll insert a disclaimer here. I am not necessarily a model citizen for how to run a perfectly overnight successful e-commerce fashion business.
This is totally fine. That's why we're here. I just want to talk it through.
Your audience can probably learn from my experiences, especially on this one. So yeah, we did in I think it was around August, actually, right after we last spoke. We really wanted to test out the subscription model because that's the dream, right? Investors love to see recurring payment structures and newness, and so do business owners. So we did. We launched a monthly patch subscription, and when I say patch, we literally mean like an embroidered patch, the kind of thing that you might collect, or if you were in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, you would stick that on your uniform. So we started collaborating with different artists every month to co-design not only a patch, but sort of like an art packet, if you will. So there would be a limited edition patch design that was obviously the most desirable piece, but we would also include original artwork that made artwork a little bit more accessible. These were pretty cool artists. One of them included Jeremy Novi. He's really well known for his koi fish graffiti artwork, like all throughout the country. Kat Tat is another artist that we collaborated with. She is both a reality TV star, but also a super talented tattoo artist. And she collabed with us on a patch design. And for $25 a month, customers could basically get this patch in the mail, always a completely new concept, always a completely original idea, and basically start collecting these patches over time. We had two models with this too. It was $25 a month for that monthly subscription, or a slightly reduced annual subscription for $275. And we did all of this under Recharge.
Yeah.
That was the Shopify app integration that we used. Pros and cons with Recharge too. Definitely an intuitive interface. Really liked that. And very, very just the usability from a business owner's perspective with Recharge. It was a great product. That being said, the monthly patch subscription was not successful, but I do have some theories as to why. And with modifications, we might bring it back.
Here's one of the patches here. So walk me through the launch of it, and yeah, and maybe where the what were you, if you're willing to give me peak subscriber numbers and what you saw from people's reaction from getting the patches, applying the patches, and staying up to date with the subscription.
Yeah, so peak numbers, gosh, I can only really state that from an adoption rate from our existing customer base. We didn't have a ton of marketing budget to put behind this. So I think it was actually quite good. I think we had about 15% of our existing customer base adopted the patch subscription. And the majority of those customers did the annual subscription too, which was great because that's a 12-month commitment right there. Instead of depending on these, possibly cancellations of these monthly subscriptions. So that was a good indicator in the beginning. The challenges that we hit were that the patch idea was a very complementary product with our Denim Jacket Hero product, but it wasn't necessarily utilitarian. It's art, it's something collectible, but you can't really use it on a day-to-day basis. But it's great if you just love patches, and some people really do. They're obsessed with collecting patches, and this is the perfect kind of product for them. And it's more grown up, than something that you might get, like, again, when you're in Boy Scouts. It was a really cool concept, but it was not a simple product either. And so it was very labor intensive to source and communicate with and book and do contracts with these artists.
Yeah, you have to do one a month. So I'm
exactly.
imagining it could take 3 or 4 months to close one of these deals.
Exactly. Yeah. And then on top of that, we're doing all of this printed artwork. So you've got multiple assets that are included in these packages. Honestly, it could have been a standalone business. And it might still be, there are other companies that did this conceptually as well. They didn't work with like collaborative artists quite to the degree that we did. But it wasn't simple to produce, and it wasn't simple to understand. I mean, there's a lot of elements being pulled into that. So I think if you're a company like mine where you have just a traditionally sold product, but you also want to test out subscription, start off by doing just a really simple side product, so that you can test it out. Just, it's kind of like an MVP in the beginning. That's what I would definitely recommend. Also, it was a turbulent year last year. I don't know that launching a product, that isn't useful, that isn't, super necessary with regards to the epidemic. I think it kind of fell on deaf ears. So the timing just wasn't great. And that's why I say that, we might want to try it again.
I gotcha. It actually reminds me, I'll share a little story. I really wanted to launch the Future of E-commerce podcast about a year ago. and I have this grandiose plan. It's going to have multiple different, guests in every episode, and like a curated stream of content. And there'll be background music and sound effects and all these things. And then as I got into it, I realized, holy crap, there's no way I can do one episode a week. I'm like, I can barely do one episode a month. And so I'm really proud of what the podcast is, but we're like 7 episodes in after almost a year. So similar to what you're talking about is launching the subscription product. I think I overcommitted to the podcast with a grand plan, whereas I could have just done like a simple interview style podcast that I could have done and published in 30 minutes. But I had to do it up big, and I think the same thing. But I hope to revisit and be able to get back to that. So I feel you on, stretching resources too thin, as well as moving, getting your eyes off the prize a little bit, right? The core product and you need to sell more of that core product. And truth be told, on a monthly basis, it was at how many dollars a month?
$25 a month or $275 for the annual subscription, which is like, paying for 11 months and getting the 12th month free.
Yeah, and the annual subscription is equivocal to the cost of a jacket. So, if you can get one annual versus one jacket, it's almost the same amount of revenue coming into the company. But if you're looking at 1 month versus one jacket, you've got to sell 10 subscriptions for every jacket. And I know that you think, and I think that it is the right way to think of the model in the way that you built it is you sell the jacket first, and then the subscription is like an upsell. So it's added revenue to jacket purchases. But I'm sure, so going back to the topic of marketing, there, especially through COVID, there's been challenges with marketing and sales. Hit me with what happened during COVID and how things are going now, and what you've done or what you've changed.
Whew, yikes. Okay. So if we last spoke around June, then, we were in the thick of COVID, but we still didn't have like the full scope of exactly how it was going to impact the business. And we were all, listening to the news with bated breath. COVID, we had to furlough a couple of employees, which was really sad because our team is already very, very small to begin with. For a while, we had to evacuate the building in which our studio was located. And so new development was basically not possible. But fortunately, that didn't last terribly long. We experienced production delays of probably about 5 months. We had an open purchase order in March when things first started happening, and basically our factory very intelligently, I commend them for this, but they had to go down to way lower capacity than they had before. So that definitely slowed down our production line and made inventory replenishment really difficult. We did pivot into selling masks. Everybody asked that question, and we're still selling them. Yeah, we're still selling now.
I really love the masks. We were just looking at them here. I'll bring them up here in a second. They're because of the name is a play on Venom as well as denim. I think it just like it has this edgy style to it. Let me see if I can.
They're also reflective. So we've had a lot of people that, walk their dog at night or ride their bike or whatever. And it becomes also sort of like a safety mechanism as well.
I like it, while still remaining edgy, which is certainly something you can see that this brand never veers from.
It's funny. Some companies took a very reactive approach to masks as a whole. They recognized the imminent demand at the top of the pandemic, and they threw something together really quickly to capture sales at their highest point, which is smart. But not really by choice. Like, we had to take a really different approach. Last development, we kind of anticipated that people might not be happy with those designs from the beginning because of comfort or style or practicality. And so we put a lot of thought into our design and development, but we did launch them quite a bit later.
Is this one of yours?
Yes.
Awesome. Those are butterflies?
They are, yeah. That style is called Night Flight. And all of these are live on the website right now. We're actually going to launch a new collection of designs pretty soon here. We're not quite out of the woods yet, so people are still buying masks. And so that's really helped keep us afloat throughout this time. We've had mask sales, obviously, denim jacket sales trickling in, only just now starting to pick up now that people are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable and the seasons are changing. But really, it's grants that have gotten us along this whole time.
Okay, tell me about this. This is new.
Yeah. Your audience might be would love to hear about this because a lot of the listeners right now are probably eligible. So they weren't huge grants, but as everyone probably knows and has experienced for themselves, every single little dollar counts. And so we managed to get the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that forgivable grant amount of $3,000 at the top of the pandemic. We applied very early for the Facebook grant, and we got that. It gave us a couple grand in advertising dollars and also a couple grand in just straight up funding. We also received Global Giving's Red Backpack Fund. This is a fund that was founded by Sarah Blakely of Spanx, which is super awesome. Everybody, if you don't know her story, definitely check it out. But I know a lot of people are familiar with it at this point, especially thanks to Shark Tank. And then most recently, we just finished the voting period for the Fedex Small Business Grant. That's a really big one. Obviously, Fedex is an enormous company. And so they actually issue 15 different grants, and the biggest one is $50,000, which is pretty significant. And you don't have to be any sort of minority group in order to apply for that one. Minority groups has been a really big focus of grants lately, which I think is awesome. But the FedEx Small Business Grant is one that anybody can apply to. And so it's a fair game. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I think it'll be announced in maybe a week or so whether or not we made it as a finalist in that one.
It's going to help the business, but ultimately it won't help grow the business. It's really interesting. We're trying to launch our own grant as well. So we're going to spin off a nonprofit, gather a bunch of money from sponsors, and I think I've told you before, a female e-commerce founder grant. So hopefully that will be available for our listeners as well. Hopefully by the end of this year, it'll at least be up and running for applications. But yeah, it's quite a process. And as everyone just heard a minute ago, I'm prone to spreading myself too thin, but it's a dream that we're going to turn into a reality soon enough. So tell me, going back to the masks, I wanted to hear this grant tangent perhaps, but are masks helping you sell jackets? Have you seen a conversion rate from one to the other, or is it the existing customers that are buying masks? And what, how might this fit into the new business model?
Yeah, it's funny. We did hope that we would see conversions on jackets as a result of masks. And that's actually not what we're seeing. We are getting new customers that are exclusively purchasing masks that might convert down the line. Again, now that people are feeling like there's a reason to get dressed up and go out, or that there soon will be, at least by the end of the year. But we're not seeing a ton of overlap. And, I have a few theories around this. One is just the price difference. There are completely different price points. Our masks are $8 a pop. I think the most expensive one that's a little bit more labor intensive is $12. Our jackets start at $295 and can go up to, the thousands, based on how one of a kind they are. So, that's a pretty different income level, if you will. But it's still growing our audience. The masks are great from just a promotional perspective. It's front and center right on your face, and we're not super blatant about the logo unless you literally bought our logo design.
Yeah, the logo.
But it's free advertising in a way. Yeah, so they've been helpful in that way. They're also a great handout kind of product. You can upsell them at checkout. You can also just give them away for free. They are great to give to like influencers, sponsors, gifting to partners, all of that kind of thing. It's a lot easier than handing over a $300 jacket. So they've been really useful in that regard. And we are still donating an N95 mask for every Venim mask sold. So ours are reusable and they're cloth. But we've been donating N95s to hospitals, to schools, to just basically any community in California that needs it, every time we sell a mask product.
That's great. That's amazing. You mentioned giving these masks to influencers. So what's been the influencer strategy? You clearly have a really cool product. I have a feeling there are people with large followings that would love to wear this and share this. How has influencer marketing gone for you? And maybe walk me through some successes and some failures.
Yeah. It's funny that the strategy for mask influencer outreach is kind of different
Yeah.
than the denim jacket influencer outreach, again, because of price point or cost of goods in this case. But I'll start with the denim jacket outreach. We have been very specific about who we are able to give product to. It's because we're a small business. You know, if I could give out 1,000 Venom jackets, I totally would. But we barely produce 1,000 denim jackets for each purchase order. So we try to establish really authentic relationships directly with some of these people rather than, say, going through a PR agency. We've tried both. So our PR agency, for example, reached out to, I think it was 5 East Coast based male influencers, all super cool, great style. But really what they were doing was asking sort of a favor from these people who they already had a relationship with, which was, we're going to send you a free Venom jacket and we really hope that you wear it in a post. And most of them committed to it and they did the post, but it lacked that authenticity. Meanwhile, I might start listening to a musician. Venom and music very tied together, fashion and music very tied together. So I might start listening to a new musician, really love their stuff. Maybe they're up and coming. I'll reach out to them directly and just say, hey, like, I love your sound. We're going to put you in one of our seasonal Venom mixtapes, which we also come out with on a quarterly basis. And we'll start a conversation. Oh
You
yeah,
can't
they're
just tell me you
great. They're
drop
great. They're all on
mixtapes.
Spotify. Yeah, and they're very indicative of the brand. A really fun thing to just give away for free. And so I've actually started talking to these musicians directly, and that's a much more authentic relationship. And you know, my favorite thing to do is make it their idea that we send them product. So rather than asking for a favor, rather than insisting that, you know, we send them a jacket really hoping that they wear it, instead it's like, get them to compliment us on our product line and say, oh, thanks so much, do you want one? And suddenly the idea is theirs, and the commitment to following through on wearing that jacket, promoting that jacket, becoming a national ambassador also becomes theirs. So that's been a lot more successful for us for the jackets. For the masks, I think that the key strategy there is just cast a really wide net. You know, it is not expensive to produce these masks. They have a great story behind them because we're donating the N95s. So contacting everyone from micro influencers to, you know, even the bigger ones, and just saying, hey, we want to send this to you for free. Maybe you'll wear it, maybe you won't, but here you go. And we can do that at a much bigger volume than with the jackets, obviously. So when we were doing that the most, it was when we first launched the masks, and it's been pretty successful at getting more mask sales. And so we'll probably be doing more of that pretty soon here when we launch the new designs.
So, all right, going back to the mixtape. So it feels to me like mixtape, really cool fashion brand, and TikTok might go really well in hand. Have you been on TikTok?
Yes. So Venom has an account on TikTok. We are terrible about producing content, but we are also just kind of in an observation mode at the minute, trying to figure out like what type of content resonates with us. How can we start communicating with just other users? And then once we have the bandwidth, that's also been a really big challenge. You know, as I mentioned, we had to furlough a couple of employees at the beginning of this. Well, one of them was our social media content creator and manager. And so once we're able to get back into the swing of things, hopefully with this one final grant, or maybe with a upswing in sales, then TikTok should be the focus for fashion. I'm learning about new brands on TikTok all the time. And so I don't see why we couldn't be one of those brands. But again, it goes, I hate this word because every marketer uses it, but it goes back to like authenticity. And on TikTok, authenticity is raw content. It doesn't have to be pretty. In fact, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree with you. And yesterday in one of our sessions, the future of influencer marketing for fashion and apparel, we were talking about with Sarah from Socialite about using TikTok to drive Instagram subscribers. Then you've got the Instagram stories that they can swipe up and click on. So I thought that there was a interesting strategy there. And if you've already got the playlist, you've got your mixtape set up, you can incorporate that music with honestly, I don't even see it being influencers. I think it's got to be you, your team, showing how you make the jackets and just doing it in a fun, quirky way. Probably could get a lot of great attention there. But I can tell you're low on bandwidth, so I understand why I haven't invested into it. You got to focus on all 100 other things, right? So I'm
Right,
not on
Chris,
TikTok either.
we're keeping the lights on. Yeah. When you're in fashion, if you made it through this last year, that's its own form of progress in my mind. So, any of your listeners out there that, made it through last year, like, good for you. It's been really rough. But yes, I do think it's time to get back into the swing of creating more social content on a regular basis. So yeah, that's definitely going to be part of the strategy moving forward. I'm trying to be a little bit more open-minded to contractors for hire through platforms like Fiverr, for example. I've always been really averse to that because there's a lot of horror stories out there, but a lot of new talent going on there too. That's a lot more professional than it was, 1, 2, 3 years ago. So we might explore that and kind of do these packages for social content creation. And even if it's not content creation, maybe it doesn't hit the nail on the head when it comes to like getting the brand and the creative direction right. Still getting the engagement and the community management aspect of that from their services could work really well for us.
Yeah, I think the horror stories scare me as well. And I honestly do try to keep that curated short list of contractors and creators and agencies that I can trust to send merchants to. But even, keeping my own short list is tough. And then those agencies are busy, or the consultant is booked up with all of their projects. And so I think there has to be a strategy behind this to vet the right people, right? Do you have a detailed like vetting process for something? You put an offer up on Fiverr, you get 130 responses. How do you find the right person?
Yeah, I use this strategy for literally everything that I do for Venom. So I don't put up a listing. I go and find the person that I want to work for me. And this goes for everything, whether it's, the future CFO of my company, or it's just somebody that's going to do social content creation for me for a week. Is I go find the aesthetic, the quality of work, the communication style, which is hopefully something that you can see on these profiles on sites like Fiverr. And I reach out to them and say, hey, I want you to work for me. And it takes a ton of research. It takes a lot of bandwidth. And it sounds exhausting, I'm sure, and that's because it is. But I like that approach a lot better than just, kind of putting a listing out there and seeing who bites. And, if that first pass doesn't necessarily work, then I'll put the listing out there and see who bites. But typically it does, because when you reach out to somebody directly and say, hey, I picked you specifically for your talent and your skill set, and I want to give you money for that, then people tend to listen.
I like it a lot. This is, I think, great advice for anybody looking at Fiverr, Upwork, or other sites and thinking, how do I find talent here without becoming I don't know what it is, a poster board for, dear sir, madam, here are my web services, which is, that email that I think I get about 3 a day still, from just, that's the cost of having a domain these days.
Yeah. Our email addresses are pretty easy to guess, I suppose. Yeah.
Eric says that he made it through the pandemic, which is great. So I think, we're celebrating.
You go, Eric. Yeah. Shouts.
So I want to talk really quickly about partnership and retail relationships, because you heard me kind of talking about it right before we brought you on about like Caro brand partnerships as an opportunity. You sell one piece of the outfit, and I'm sure there are retail locations that would want to showcase this. It probably, or you could do kind of, I think it's the bonobos style, which is like you can see it in the store, but you have to buy it online. Mm-hmm. Have you experimented with any brand partnerships or retailers?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you asked that question, because that is actually what our primary focus is for this year. Especially while the weather is good. Again, because there's still uncertainty around COVID, we are trying to not commit too hard to any specific date in case that fluctuates, but we want to have a plan ready, plan A, plan B. So we love the bonobos model, which is essentially, it's not about conversions in store. It's about creating an experience in store and getting people familiar with their product quality and fit. And so the thing about bonobos is they invested tons of money into having dedicated retail locations for this exact purpose.
Yeah.
We don't really have that kind of budget, nor do we necessarily want to commit to having standalone shops. So we want to take that model, but bring it into more pop-up, temporary kinds of experiences. We are very particular about who we want to do that with. So before that fateful March of last year, or maybe even earlier, we were planning on doing this at music festivals. Again, music is super tied into our brand, and we have a lot of connections in the entertainment industry, particularly on the West Coast. So having presence at events like Coachella, like Outside Lands, and maybe even some of the smaller ones, was going to be that pop-up strategy.
I love it.
That definitely got put on hold. But now that, Outside Lands Halloween, anybody? Yeah, that's October. So we can start thinking about that again. And so that's definitely a strategy. And then in terms of maybe less just like music festival events or temporary events like that, there are specific storefronts that we do want to have sort of pop-up experiences with. The ones that we're looking at are actually more overseas. So great example would be LNCC. They are pretty edgy, very fashion forward, multi-brand retailer based out of the UK, but they also have these really amazing storefronts, and they also have a dedicated conscious line that is all about introducing newer, smaller brands that have some sort of sustainable or ethical element to them. That's an excellent partner. And so those are the types of retailers that we want to get into bed with, for lack of a better phrase. But I am also thinking about, like, how can we imitate that whole concept online, where it's about, digitally launching Venom into some sort of conscious story without having to go into an in-person experience. Because now that everyone has moved into online because of COVID, like, a lot of people are here to stay. They've made that commitment to being digitally present. And so that will continue to be nurtured as well.
Yeah, and because of the customization of your product, that Caro brand partnership tool isn't going to work for placing at least the product sale on somebody else's site. You could probably put like a dummy product that is like couldn't be bought there, and then they could come over and purchase. But I'm sure that this is exploring both the digital and retail partnership and pop-up placements. I think it's really great. I do not like the idea of going international, because I feel like this is I think you got to start with regional trend and brand presence and then expand out. So LA, yes. San Francisco, yes. New York City, yes. And then kind of grow from there. And so I know that it sounds like a really good fit for retailers. So I'm not going to say it's a bad idea, but I know that, if you can grow those 3 cities, you've got major traction and an in to the rest of fashion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's not that we don't want to use the same strategy for retailers that are based here in the United States as well. It's just that what we were seeing over the last 365 days is more of those retailers closing than opening. And so it was hard to really target the right partners for that. But, a lot, Phoenix is rising from the ashes right now. And I do think that there is an, LNCC multi-brand retailer equivalent, probably down in LA or maybe over in New York, that we can use the same exact model with. And so that's the idea. And it's going to take a little bit of investment, but not like, a ton of budget. And again, that's why we're kind of focused on, getting these last couple of grants and then really focusing that money on creating those experiences and getting our name out there.
Love it. All right. We are at the end of our segment here. I want to know, what is the number one piece of advice that you want to give to other e-commerce founders and merchants out there, especially fashion and apparel? What is it that you've learned through your journey with Venom that they should be taken away?
Ooh, okay. This is my favorite piece of advice to give that applies to pretty much anybody. You don't even have to be an entrepreneur or founder. But as the CEO of my company, I tend to be really trigger happy when it comes to making decisions. you tend to think of it as a good quality to be a really decisive person and to make quick moves and always have an answer for your team, or for your customers. But my piece of advice is actually going to be, if it's a big decision, sleep on it. Sleep on it. Just one night, whatever kind of decision you're trying to make for your business, whether it's should I partner with this company, or should I use this service, or should I invest in, A, B, or C, doesn't matter. Just give it a night to think about it, because so much can happen in just like a short 12 to 24 hour period that will help you come to a better, more educated conclusion. So,
Yeah.
take a minute to rest on your decisions.
I'm
Yeah.
the same way as you, and I was about to buy this really small website newsletter for in e-commerce, and I slept on it one day, and the next day I woke up and I was like, "How much am I paying per person on this list?" I was like,
Yeah.
"No, this is crazy." So I walked away from it, and I was like, I was ready to like send them money, and so I think at least one day. And when it comes to the purchase of e-commerce technology, since this is my specialty, since you're kind of leading me into it, the more lock-in on the technology, and of course, the larger your like annual cost of that SaaS tool or whatever it is, the more time you should spend thinking about that, vetting it, meaning demo, trial, etc., as well as comparing alternatives, because you will have costs associated with not, researching the alternatives, or even thinking of an alternative such as a spreadsheet, and making sure that it's the right time for the business to invest in an inventory management system, or our next guest augmented reality tool or something like that. So take the time to do research, compare options, and make sure you've got the resource and the budget to invest in it for a technology tangent. Leslie, thank you so much. We love everything you're doing. It's great to catch up, and it's really great to see Venim surviving through a hard time. You're about to come out the other end of this, and I think there's going to be some major traction. I think there's going to be I think you're going to find that you've put yourself in a very lucky position. So you're going to be like, whoa, this influencer just like mentioned our jacket for no reason. Whoa, this brand is trying to get us in their store. I think that that's right here on the horizon, combined with all the hard work that you've done just to be here today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Derric, and good luck to everybody. Just hang in there.
Awesome. All right, Leslie, talk to you later.